a progression in the growth. When the progression comes forth, there's going to be more pain that comes forth with it. And every level comes with its own form of pain, hence establishing a sacrifice for it. And you sacrifice what? Time. I remember I was actually thinking about it. I was like, since the life of a thing is in its blood, the thing that measures the life of a person is the duration that person is conscious. Because the minute a person loses their consciousness, at that point, and the heart stops, then their life stops. Now, if I'm sacrificing my life, I am sacrificing my consciousness at the expense of something.
In continuation,
Faith, belief. If I believe in this, I'm going to sacrifice the duration of my consciousness to this thing. When God plants a seed in your heart, in your mind, when He plants a seed, what you are sacrificing is your consciousness at the expense of that thing until it comes to fruition. But here's the thing: when you operate from the realm where God operates in, it's not on earth. So you're going to be contending with that which is an enmity against God, which is the flesh. The spirit of this age, it's going to fight against the seed. That seed, it wants to deter you from, it wants you to fall in line with its system. The more you sacrifice your consciousness, the more your consciousness takes the shape and form of the seed, and now the seed is growing in you. The more you sacrifice your consciousness to the gospel, the more the seed of the gospel is going to grow in your heart. The more you sacrifice your consciousness, the duration of your consciousness to the vision, the goal, the inspiration, the burden that God has placed in your heart, the more your mind, your heart, your being, your lifestyle, your life will take the shape and form of that seed. Hence now it's growing. When it starts to multiply, it won't just feed you, but it will also feed a multitude. Because from every fruit, they seed. After the fruit has been eaten, they seed. That seed will now generate more trees that will generate more fruit. It will be self-sustaining just because you sacrificed. But you did not just sacrifice on the grounds of your flesh, but you sacrificed on the grounds of what the Lord God said, the proceeding word, the seed that came from heaven, that seed, you sacrificed on the grounds of that. Now, a sacrifice is, I'm not going to go too deep in altars and all that, but I'm mainly focusing on sacrifice. A sacrifice brings forth legality of exchange from the spiritual to the earthly realm. A sacrifice, and it can work both ways. And I remember I kept on saying that the first level of obedience, die this death first. This death opens a person unto God. It opens a person unto the workings of God. Let me say that. Dying the death of praying and reading the Bible. It's painful, but get to a point where even the perception of that pain that will come from your flesh doesn't have the authority to move you from the fact that I'm going to pray and I'm going to read the Bible, and that's that. The minute that happens, the space that was taken by the pain that caused that, now there's going to be evidence that you died that death the minute you begin to tap into that power, because the room that the pain occupied, since you've conquered the pain by dying that death, that which you sacrificed for, which is to encounter God, to know Him more, oh Father, to know more of God, since you've conquered that pain, that which you sacrificed for, you will begin to encounter. You will begin to encounter God in Scripture. You'll begin to encounter God not just in Scripture, but now you'll begin to know how He speaks. You'll begin to discern when it's Him or not. But it all comes from dedicating, sacrificing your life to reading the Bible and praying and saying, this is it. I know I'm beating around it. I'm trying to get to a point, this point. Look. Just as it's like that when it comes to God and reading the Word and remember, the life of a creature, the life of a thing is in its blood. Now, when we're translating blood into us, the sacrifice is time, because our life is measured by the duration we are conscious. The minute a person loses their consciousness and dies, then that means they are no more conscious in this realm. Their life has ended. Now, when you sacrifice your life, you are sacrificing a duration of your consciousness. Ne? The more you give yourself to, for example, lustrous thoughts, the more you give your consciousness, what you consume is lustrous. What you consume, it has sex in it. What you do, everything, the music you listen to, the everything, you are spending your consciousness, you're spending the duration of your consciousness in this realm of lust. And lust is not only limited to sex and fornication and adultery, and I'm just using this because it's commonly known. It's not limited to that. There's more to it, but I'm not, that's not the point of this video. The more you spend the duration of your consciousness on these things, and your life is consumed by the content of these things, by the indulging in these things, by the what you're doing, you're sacrificing yourself to whatever spirit being is facilitating that which you're sacrificing the duration of your consciousness to. Now, what happens is, since sacrifice has already been put, you've opened yourself to a spiritual exchange. Listen, exchange. I didn't say transaction. Exchange, sacrifice, exchange, a spiritual exchange. You've opened yourself to a spiritual exchange, meaning just as you received pleasure from spending your consciousness, the duration of your consciousness to this thing, since you've indulged in its things by sacrificing the duration of your consciousness on this earthly realm, from the spirit realm, it can now take also. Because sacrifice establishes the grounds, the legal grounds for spiritual exchanges. The more you sacrifice to such, the more such will exchange with you. Now, your mind, your heart, the way you look, the way you feel, the way it's going to begin to take the reality of that consciousness. You won't just be consuming it. Ne? You won't just be consuming it, but now it's going to start consuming you. Now, look, when that begins to happen, now you'll be operating from, now faith is the spiritual material, spiritual nature of things imagined, the evidence of the unseen realm. Yes, we are looking at it from a point that God is the one that planted the seed, but the more you sacrifice, because remember, when now you're beginning to operate in the realm of God, the first sacrifice that you do what? You spend time in the word and prayer. Now, it's also opposite that as well. When you're spending your time in the things of the world, when you're spending your time in the things of the flesh, when you're spending the spiritual material, the spiritual nature of those things that you're spending your time into will now be facilitated into your heart. When that happens, now the spiritual nature, you've opened, because you've sacrificed to this so much, you've opened yourself to the spiritual nature, the spiritual material of that life. Now you are going to begin your imagination, you're going to be alive to the spirit. When you are alive to the spirit, you are able to imagine its reality. When you imagine its reality, out of the faith of that imagination, out of the reality of that imagination, your life will be evidence of the spirit realm. Listen, your life will be evidence of the nature of the spirit. You will house it. Strongholds are created like this. You know, you'll house it. Now, sacrifice. Do we need a Prt3? When you continue in sacrificing to a spirit being, that spirit being finds legal access to the person sacrificing, because you've opened the grounds of exchange. That spirit being can express itself through your consciousness, because what you are sacrificing is the duration of your consciousness. It can have access to your consciousness. When you imagine, it's happening from your mind. Your consciousness is captured in your mind. imagination operates, as much as it comes from what you are alive to in your heart. Your imagination, the house of your imagination is in your mind. The connection of your heart and your imagination is formed by a spiritual transaction. When you've been sacrificing the duration of your consciousness to a spirit being, you give it access to your heart. You give it access. When it gets access, it will give you its life. And now its life will be manifested in your imagination, which will be now translated in your mind. And now from the imagination of your mind, what you are alive to is how your consciousness will be carrying itself in this life on earth, manifesting the reality of the influence the spirit has on your heart, which is translated in what you are alive to by your imagination, now your consciousness walking in it. Here's the thing about it. When you operate in this type of life, your life is driven by a spirit being. When you are operating in a manner that you're consistently sacrificing the consciousness, the duration of your consciousness to God, then the influence that will come from your heart will be the influence of righteousness. When you're consciously sacrificing the duration of your consciousness to the realm of darkness, the realm of the flesh, the things of the flesh, that which will be coming from that will be wickedness.